you guys, what was something that you enjoyed from that exercise, or what something that you can share, like, oh, I had the light bulb, it finally clicked that I got this little type piece type thing, okay? Steve, you weren't participating, but can I call on you?
Yes.
You were probably eavesdropping on a number of different conversations. What did you grab out of that?
Well, the interesting thing I think I got out of it is I think it's an interesting concept to teach the one-to-many relationship to the 1 to 12 main elements that we have. Because I think if you guys can grasp that, then it's one of the biggest principles that we have within the system is the one-to-many relationship. So it just goes on and on and on. It's not only the expense receipts, the invoices, the POs, the deposits. I mean, if you can get your head around that piece there, then you're way ahead of understanding exactly how to make it work, and then you can conceptualize what's trying to happen. And the same thing with when you get to trying to work the balance sheet through, then you realize that maybe I'm missing a line item on an invoice, and that's why it's out of balance.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Shannon, can we call on you?
I think my favorite part was just when you were actually sharing some of your examples and just recognizing the dynamic relationship of it and what a great benefit that is versus a more static program that has benefits or can help you track things, but really it's so dynamic, and that's really the power, I think, behind it.
It is the power behind it. And in some of our literature, we don't even know what to call ourselves, but we call it a virtual data portal. Our job is to track data. And data could be a simple little candy bar sale, or it could be so-and-so's got asphalt and they traded it for a trailer and I had to show the different, it depends on what your term of data is. We track data. We try to help you do that. Cheryl.
I think one of the things that helped me the most is when we were working on it, we made a scenario, and I bought something for her and she was selling it to me. So we loaded our plates at the same time, and it was interesting to see what was on my plate and what was on her plate. So there was an understanding of whichever side I'm on, I have different things going on to my plate.
Okay, great. You definitely do have different things. Let's come over here, Ethan.
The main thing was just like she said for me, was the dynamics of it versus also trying to get an understanding for me of how I'm building I'm always building the same basic foundation over and over. So I think what I'm excited about is once I get that, we were almost there. I'm still have a few gaps, but I can tell if I get that foundation, it's almost always just 2 or 3 questions, and you're always there again, and you're ready to pass it back.
Exactly.
You don't have to know everything. You just know the foundational things, and then it sort of leads you.
Perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. I can't even say it better than that. That was awesome, okay? Guess what? In Adilas, some people are like, it's such a big program. You have somebody do 10 invoices, guess what? They're going to do 10, 50, 100, 50 million. It's so repetitive. Once you learn those processes and you understand, oh, my main creates the ID and I get to tie things to it. Okay, cool. What am I going to stick in there, You do that. The next customer comes in, he's only buying 2 items. Main, stick in 2 items. The next one comes in and he's buying tons, shopping cart full, huge. Main, like this, send him on his way type thing. Send him on his way, that type of thing. Awesome. Chris.
Well, I guess mine is that how complex it is, having worked for years and years with accounting and databases and everything, is that I'm going, okay, this is really complex, and yet as an instructor and going, okay, how do you teach people who could care less about accounting and all this other stuff? It's such a simplistic type of model, which is to me really nice, because it's such a pain going and go, okay, I really don't want to teach you all about accounting. I don't want to teach you all about databases. I just want you to fill out an invoice. And so, yeah, they don't need to know all that underlying. They don't need to know how to batch this and modify that and do this. It's like, no, you can just sit down and do it, like I say, within just a few minutes of a training session. So, I'm impressed.
That's great. And the other thing right there, remember how we were talking about permissions and settings and stuff like this? So if somebody has a job and they're like, hey, I'm happy to sell as much as you want, you train them on this process and teach them just this little teeny piece, and it ends up feeding other parts of the system. Okay? So instead of the old way, I'm going to go back to this big old gap here, okay? So operations. Big old time gap, could be months, could be even shipping it across the state, could be whatever. Accounting gets it, guess what they have to redo? Tick, 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 tick. They have to re-enter, re-enter, re-enter. Okay, you just lost the source, you just lost the time, and you just lost, like, there's a number of things that instantly start happening. But if we go like this, enter here, do your little job, you're happy, you're in your own little compartment, pass it on. I'm going to just real quick, just pull up this quick little piece, and then we're going to go right back to you, David, just a second, okay? So I'm going to go to Adilas, and I'm just going to quickly pull up that little thing that we were talking about here. So watch this little model. Okay, so exactly what you were explaining right here, Chris. Watch this. My sales guys, they're right there. They have that teeny little permission. They started at the source. They passed it on. The next person's like, yeah, that looks like some good daily sales. You stamp it, you flag it, you date it. You virtually just said, okay, you may advance. If that stamp never happens, guess what ends up happening? Just kind of keeps building up, just happening. It's like, oh, I only made it to step 2, and like there are people that run on Adilas, all they like to do is that much or less. That's all, and they're happy with that. But if you want, we're like, hey, at some point this thing has a life cycle. We'll help you track it all the way through if you want. By the time it gets to the end, we're going to call that accounting. We use this analogy of like a water droplet's freezing into ice, okay? If you have water droplets, very loose, very, very loose, okay? As it becomes slush and crystals, guess what it's doing? It's starting to firm up, it's starting to become more. And once it's physically an ice item type thing, you could then take that, throw it, you can stack it, you can do whatever. That becomes your accounting. And what we're doing is through permissions, we basically flag and date that thing through a linear process. Okay? Thank you. I kind of jumped off the subject there for a minute. David.
Around 15 years ago, Steve and I started out all about hard trade along. Added pretty much the only program that we started using, and I had no clue about accounting at all. I just started using Atlas and just learned how it all tied together. And when somebody started talking to me about QuickBooks or spreadsheet and web, I thought,
There's some really neat things, and I would. Can I come back to that concept of spreadsheet? Because there's actually a piece of Atlas that we use that is very similar to a spreadsheet. The one thing that we don't do is we don't try to make it all fit on this. Imagine a spreadsheet that has the power of a spreadsheet. We have multiple places and pages, like your map, all those different categories. And then we permission the spreadsheet, and we run dates across it, and we do all this kind of stuff. But you have the power of this. I'll enter this and this and this, and I'll have a formula over here that automatically calculates my number. And as I update this, it automatically. There is huge power in a spreadsheet, but we have gone way past a spreadsheet into the Atlas.
tying everything together.
Yeah, yeah, and tying everything together. So there's pieces of spreadsheets that are huge. They're a great tool. They really are. Okay. If you just tried to be just spreadsheet, you would break it. Okay. It's like the muffin tin. In order to do that, you have to calculate for whatever could possibly be there. Imagine if you one of your tickets has 100 line items and one of them only has 1 line item, and you're trying to track that all on the same report. Well, what you do is you say, here's how much it totally is, item 1, item 2, well, you have to carry all that weight for something that only has 2. It still has to go clear out to 100 with all of the formulas. And so you're literally almost in the muffin tin analogy.
That muffin tin that failed made me realize that makes more sense using that model.
A flexible model is an object model, and then you literally build one-to-many relationships on that, and then you just track backwards. It makes it quite fun and quite easy. Sherry-O,
Sure.
let's have you kind of report on what you thought on the little exercise. Plates and cups and labeling.
What I learned most of it?
You're fine.
Well, actually, I think just what I learned most is the association with the flex grids, because I use it pretty limited. And when you and I and Craig did our example of all the flex grids that you and I were talking about, I didn't realize how expandable it was.
Okay.
I did not.
Awesome.
I never used that. To a certain degree, but not to that level. So,
If people ask for custom things, often the first step that we will take is, let's see if we can build it in FlexGrid, okay?
mhm.
And if that satisfies your needs, great. If it's not, and it's something like, wow, that's a really good idea, we totally missed that, then we add it on as another one-to-many add-on. You got a main Lego and you're snapping on another one, okay? You're literally just building on. It's an add-on type thing. But if we can, we try to accomplish it through FlexGrid.
Okay.
Thank you. Craig?
Will you just do the 3 things of flex grid?
Absolutely. You know what? And I know I'm bouncing around. You guys are like, dude, I don't even have like a username or password. We'll get to that. Yeah, I promise. So here's how fast I'm going to get there. FlexGrid. There's a keyword called home. Hit go. There's either a help file here. There's a help file here. There's a help file here. There's multiple links that goes to the same help file. Boom. Here's your 3 things that it does right here. Record a user-maintained history note. This is an extra detail or a log note. Record and use one or more of the 15 possible custom fields. 3, tie pieces together. Example, this invoice to that expense receipt, this customer to that PO, etc.
How did you get there from the homepage, from the classic?
From the classic homepage, I use the quick search. Like, I'm going to get to the classic homepage just a second, and we'll get there together, okay? Classic homepage, if I wanted to, I would type in the word home there and then hit FlexGrid and go. That's one way to do it. Or I can come over here and say, click, FlexGrid homepage, go. Like, either way gets me there from the classic homepage, okay? And there's multiple ways that you can get around the system. Once you learn where these little pieces are, you can instantly add or land at the FlexGrid homepage. While we're on, I would actually love to cover the FlexGrid, but I don't know if we want to cover it right this minute. I think we need to kind of get some other pieces in first, okay? Just so you know, I actually, as part of my prep for this class, I went through the entire help file for the FlexGrid and I rewrote it. so like, I was hoping to kind of get to it like, okay, I really want to help and share this. And so if you like, and if you're a reader, this is a brand new help file that we basically did that kind of helps it. Let me just show it to you. We're not going to cover it right this second, but basically it has a diagram, kind of says some of the main pieces about it. Then it goes down through and it says, this is some basic information about the page. This is more information about the FlexGrid. This is how people often use the FlexGrid. This is how, and I go through a bunch of different little analogies, and then I'm kind of like, okay, here you go. But I'm hoping, and the more we go, some of the future projects of Adilas are helping to tie in these home pages, and tie in these help files, and tie them in with video. And so as we do some of these things, we create the little video links, so if you're like, man, I'd really like to learn that. 1, we're providing a reading thing. 2, we could potentially do audio. 3, we could potentially link it to video. Like, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to quickly jump away from it, okay? We're talking one-to-many relationships. Guess what we did with our help files? One page has a help file, but I can then link it to whatever else I want, okay? So any page in the system actually has its own ID number. Like, you know how important like ID number PO 1414 is, okay? That's its ID number. Well, guess what? This page right here actually has an ID. Can you see up in the address bar right up here? 323, okay? This little number, so then all of a sudden I'm able to automatically link things back into this. And I'll jump away from this. It was just to kind of let you know, one-to-manys are used all over the system. We have a huge system, but each page has its own ID number, so then I can talk to it. And later on, as we do videos, all I have to do is say, hey, you're a great video. Let's tie you to ID number 323, okay? So all of a sudden, then I can pull a query later on that says, when I land on this, what other videos were connected to me? Oh, I'm connected to 233. Like, I can create a one-to-many relationship even in the help files to help you. Like, I'll bail out. Like, don't, a little deep right now, so we'll.
I want to give a quick example
Yeah.
too, Brandon, just to, this might be helpful on the one-to-many relationship. So when we're doing a lot of training, what we do to help clients sometimes remember the system itself, because there's literally up to 1,000 pages that you could land on, is up in the left-hand corner you can see where it shows the favorites. So what a client can do if they're on their computer and say that the bank homepage or some report that's deeper within the bank homepage is one of the reports that they want to look at all the time. What they can do is when they land on that page, they can save it in my favorites. So that my favorites starts building a one-to-many relationship.
It's about favorites within Windows.
Within the browser.
Within the browser. Another example is, notice how Brandon has up at the top there, he has 2 tabs. He has the help file and he has the online business. You can have 4 or 5 tabs open, or you can have multiple windows open. So that's kind of an example of how a one-to-many relationship can help you move through the system and get to a page really quickly. The one page that we do have, which is my this one here, or I mean the map. Can you go to the chooser map? So we'll use a word that Sherry loves the best. Eventually, over here on the left-hand side is my quick links. This is like the favorites that's built into Adilas. So we're actually going to allow you to bring favorite links in there on the left-hand side of that dynamic map. But in the meantime, you can do so through your web browser too. But that's 2 examples that I use a lot to kind of pin down the thought of a one-to-many relationship.
Okay, here's another one-to-many relationship. I have a client on a phone, and they're calling me, hey, I'm looking at such and such and such and such, okay? So Adilas becomes the one, and the thing that we're looking at becomes the one, but guess who's looking at it? Okay, yeah, I'm logged in, I see that. Oh, yeah, I do see that, okay? And they're looking at the same thing, so you have multiple users who are hitting a centralized data source, like Adilas, okay? Imagine if all of us were on the exact same page, all logged in, even under different ID numbers, and we're all saying, let's go see what we did today for invoices, and we run a report. You're potentially doing a one-to-many, okay? All of you guys are chiming in on data that exists, okay? You're pulling it, you're pulling it, you're pulling it, you're pulling it, you're pulling it. It's a one-to-many relationship, just in data. Like, it's really hard to get this concept across, but I hope you know this goes throughout life. This is how things are organized. And what we do is we just kind of keep doing that and stacking it. And once you learn that, you're like, oh, it sounds to me like it's just another one-to-many relationship. Let's go to customers for just a microsecond. Say you have a customer, okay? What possible one-to-many relationships could we add from a customer? Look, we're right here, okay? Watch this. One customer could have how many quotes? Okay. One customer could have how many invoices? One customer could have how many user-maintained logs, notes that I add. Hey, I called Joe, and he said to call him back on Friday. Oh, I called back on Friday. These are one-to-manys here, okay? One customer that has tons of invoices has how many statements? Okay? Wait, I want you to see that this is very, very, very broad. One customer has how many different bookings and different events that are tied to it, or different times that I'm actually billing him for time. Okay? One-to-many relationships throughout the whole thing. Okay? Like every single piece, if you were to pick something and be like, okay, how about a user? What could a user be tied to? Like every single thing is built in a one-to-many relationship.
Permissions?
Permissions. One user might have 3 permissions. Hey, I'm able to do a shopping cart and add a customer, or something simple like that. Another user might have, okay, guess what? I can do this whole bottom point of sale system. I've got all of these permissions. Another user might be like, you know what? I am very good at, all I do is clock in and out. They don't let me do anything else, that's it. That's kind of like permissions and settings type thing, but it becomes a one-to-many relationships. If I am one user, how many time cards am I going to make? every day, multiple possibly, okay? So, and then eventually what we do is, watch this. One user, punch in, punch out, punch in, punch out. Eventually we say, okay, let's do payroll, let's gather all that up together. It's like putting it on a platter, and then we're going to pay for all of these things, and then we tie it to an expense, which eventually hits a bank. The whole thing, like, it's a story. This is the game of business. And just like golf, you literally have to think of it kind of like a game like that.
It's just so amazing to me because you think of the hours most of the people, the teams in my company spent retyping, re-putting in, redoing. Every department had to redo their own things and retype. I mean, the fact that you're just adding something or approving of something or making a quick edit and moving it on, you know, we're back full circle to the first board cars. I mean, this allows us, this technology allows us to be just a conveyor belt instead of everybody rebuilding this thing.
Correct, okay. What my mind just goes, and I apologize. And this is kind of a funny story. We were actually at a client's place one time, and I didn't even realize I was doing this, but the accountant lady and the main boss were there, and they were sitting there asking me questions. This goes here, and I'm making all these sound effects, and they're just like, do you normally do that? And I don't even realize I do it. It's just kind of part of it. I do talk with all the gibberish and stuff, but let's do this. Let's take a break. Let's take a little 10-minute break, and then we will kind of reconvene, and we'll kind of start back up and go into the next subject, all right?